For several years now, more than any other Hollywood studio, Disney has gone all in on the message, trying to use their platform to change the world for the better, to paraphrase Bob Iger, a self-acclaimed global citizen of the world. Well, Disney are now finding out the hard way that all their fans who were telling them that they were headed down the wrong path, the very fans whom they dismissed as bigots and horrible people, were right all along. Because following Trump's landslide victory of even the popular vote, Disney has had to come to terms with the fact that it was in fact they who were on the wrong side of history. And it's time to course correct. A storyline in Pixar's upcoming animated series, Win or Lose, is among the first stricken by that, but it won't be the last. Let's dive in. Hot on the heels of Disney's ABC paying Team Trump $15 million in a settlement, because it would have been much more expensive for them if they didn't, Variety reported that Disney cuts trans storyline from Pixar's Win or Lose series. Many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects on their own terms. The full story reads, Win or Lose, the first ever long-form series from Pixar, was originally set to feature a transgendered storyline that ended up being cut by Disney, Variety has learned, because Disney leaked it to them. Debuting in 2025, Win or Lose will follow the members of a co-ed middle school softball team as they gear up for their championship game. Each episode follows a different character, and the show is intended to focus on varied perspectives, including the insecure kids, their helicopter parents, and even a lovesick umpire, per the official logline. But a trans perspective will no longer be highlighted. A source tells Variety that references to one of the characters' gender identity was removed, affecting a few lines of dialogue in the show's later episodes, though it appears there was not a full episode devoted to the subject matter. That right there is code for that it was in the background, being normalized in virtually every episode. When it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline, said a spokesperson for Disney. And I gotta say, that's a very novel sentiment for Disney right there, and a major breach from what they've been preaching in the last few years. What's being said here is code for, we realize that audiences are not down with the messaging, and they said so loud and clear at the polls. As a company, we cannot afford being this out of touch with our audience, not when park attendance is down already, so we're salvaging this as much as we can by cutting this storyline. That has to be a bad blow to the trans talent voicing this part though, as Disney's diversity criteria makes it clear no one else may play such a role. Indeed, in a follow-up piece, Deadline Hollywood reached out to the talent in question in their exclusive Win or Lose transgender actress speaks out after Disney cuts her storyline. Very disheartened. This exclusive reads, in 2020, Chanel Stewart was scrolling through X when she happened upon a post about how Pixar was looking for an authentic 14-year-old transgender girl to voice a transgender teenager in a new animated series. Stewart, who at 14 had already logged a few commercials, knew instantly that it was her role of a lifetime. I was exactly what they wanted to a T, and that's why it felt so right. It felt just so right, says Stewart, who is a transgender girl from Los Angeles. Which might not be a coincidence. I immediately asked my mom if I could do it, because I just felt like if I don't do this, it wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean? Well, I certainly see the emotional framing Deadline Hollywood is going for here. Stewart eventually scored the voiceover job in Win or Lose, which revolves around a co-ed softball team at a middle school named the Pickles in the week leading up to their big championship game. Stewart couldn't wait to share the news with her friends. Oh my god, it was crazy, the now 18-year-old recalls. I wore it as a badge. I wore it with pride. I wore it with honor because it meant so much to me. The thought of authentically portraying a transgender teenage girl made me really happy. I wanted to make this for transgender kids like me. In other words, Disney's earlier statement wouldn't have been too well received then, and indeed. So when Disney called Monday night to tell her mom, Keisha, that Win or Lose would no longer include a transgender storyline, both she and Chanel were heartsick. Disney released a statement that said, "When it comes to animated content for a younger audience, we recognize that many parents would prefer to discuss certain subjects with their children on their own terms and timeline. It was upsetting because my daughter is transgender and this is her life. I felt like it was very important that we not hide that fact," Stewart's mom Keisha tells Deadline. There may be some parents out there who are not ready to have that conversation, but this is the world we live in and everyone should be represented. No, actually, this is the world that you live in, LA woman. Most of the rest of the world doesn't and tends to view your world as not entirely representative of the rest of it, let's say. But the story continues. Everyone deserves to be recognized, and it felt like it was just another setback for the LGBTQ community, because it's very hard on transgender teenagers. Transgender people, period. Especially when you're young and you're trying to figure out how to navigate this world that you live in and be able to grow into your own person. I was very disheartened, adds Stewart. From the moment I got the script, I was excited to share my journey to help empower other trans youth. I knew this would be a very important conversation. Trans stories matter, and they deserve to be heard. Yeah, I'm not disputing that, but it would appear that Disney no longer feels that their content is the right venue for such stories. They played the gender game already, and it cost them billions. The article continues. By cutting the transgender storyline, Disney eliminated a few lines of dialogue from an episode that references a character's gender identity. Stewart was not at liberty to share details with Deadline about her character, but was told by Disney that she's still part of the show heavily. Really? Well, then they just Streisand-affected this, because now everyone will be looking, both audience-focused content creators, as well as the exceedingly few activists that were championing this, and now none of them will be pleased. The activists won't be pleased because now it's just trans baiting, and yet the much bigger other side won't be pleased either, because the character is still there, so they will find something, even though Stewart doesn't believe so. It's just that my character would now be a cis girl, a straight cis girl, says Chanel Stewart. So yeah, that's all they really told me, and that I was still part of the show. But there's one thing that Disney can't take away from Stewart, says Deadline Hollywood. I'm definitely one of the first transgender girls to do this, says Stewart of her voiceover gig. It's a true honor to be part of queer history. Yeah, not sure this is much to celebrate, but kudos for the attitude and for taking it as well as possible, I guess. As for Disney, this is a surefire signal that they are indeed changing, and they're trying to get back in good graces with the audience. But will this be enough, or is more needed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.